It is for the UMass Lowell Hockey Riverhawks, another Hockey East weekend ahead. Boston University in town on Friday night, and then the Riverhawks and Terriers journey down to Back Bay, Boston for a Saturday night meeting. That, make a note, is a bit later start, a 7:30 start. Anyway, joining us, the head coach, Norm Bazin. And Norm, it's the stretch drive. We talk about playing playoff-style hockey, and I think maybe the weekend gone by was a good example of playoff-style hockey, and I thought this team played that style rather well.
No question. I thought last weekend was a good series of games by each opponent, really. And I thought our guys came to play, and it was a tight hockey game both nights, and they made simple plays and did what they had to do to come out.
Curious, we always talk about playoff-style hockey this time of the year. If playoff-style hockey is such a good style, why does a team not play it all year long? Is it difficult to kind of maintain that high level of intensity for a full season?
Well, I think playoff-style hockey can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. However, when you talk about playoff-style hockey, it can be a little bit more simple. It can be certainly a little more boring at times. So you like to play a little bit more wide open for the fans and keep the game energized throughout the season. And when the playoffs come around, you'll do anything to chip the puck out at times, and that's kind of what it equals to.
All right, this weekend, Boston University, we saw them once very early in the season. Should we assume in some ways that both of these teams, UMass Lowell and Boston University, are very different teams than they were back on November 5th when the Riverhawks were 7-1 victors?
Yeah, there's no question. I think both teams have changed dramatically in terms of some of the personnel, in terms of the intensity level at this time of the year. So I expect it to be a very tight hockey game.
This is a young team in many respects, though there is certainly veteran leadership that gets called upon at this time of the year. But it's a young team with a young defense. I've got to guess, watching last weekend and watching the recent weeks, that this team, despite a low number of career games experience, has performed rather well in what is a pressure situation.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I don't look at the games played statistic very much, because at this point in the year you're relying upon the guys playing your system and doing the simple things out there on a consistent basis. So we dismiss a lot of that and we treat them all like veterans because they have to play like veterans. And our expectations are high. We will have to play at our best if we're going to have success this weekend, and that's what we intend to do.
While I was pointing to inexperience, I also, and we can debate that, and I'll tip my hat and assume that you're right. But I would also think experience counts for something. When I look at the leadership of people like Matt Ferreira, when I look at the leadership of Riley Wetmore, when I look at Michael Budd, when I look at David Valorani, when I look at Tim Corcoran, players that have been through stretch drives in the past, players who have been on teams that have been battling for either home ice or for a playoff spot or in the postseason. And I've got to think the leadership on this team is using that experience well.
We've said it right from the start. We're very happy with our leadership core, and you mentioned some of those boys right there. And you can add Holmstrom to that mix. Even though he's a young guy, I think he provides some of that leadership that we're talking about. And let's not forget, some of these boys played 2 to 3 years in junior hockey, and they played an awful lot of hockey games. And we look for leadership from a lot of different classes. So it's going to be an exciting weekend of hockey, and we have to rely upon those guys to guide the way.
I often on our radio pregame shows will ask you, what does this game come down to? Let me take the liberty of asking early in the week, what does this weekend come down to? And how important is this specific weekend, these specific 4 points?
Well, they're all important at this point in the year. As you know, a lot of people are going for a title. So it's exciting hockey. It's going to be tight. What makes a difference? Probably special teams are going to play a big part in it, I'm just assuming. And really playing that team game from both sides is going to be very, very important. And goaltending always comes into play, and I feel we're strong in a lot of those areas, so it'll be exciting.
Are the particular ingredients that all successful teams have, and I ask you, you are on some very successful teams as a player here, you are on successful teams as an assistant coach here, you are an assistant coach in the successful program at Colorado College, you created a very successful program at Hamilton, and you're creating success here. Are there certain ingredients that all successful individuals, groups, teams, programs have?
Well, I'd like to think so. A team-first attitude is the biggest one. I think you got a lot of character guys in that locker room, and you mentioned Matt Ferrer earlier. You mentioned Riley Wetmore, Val, Michael Budd, all good people that are guiding by example. And when you lead that way, a lot of young guys follow. And I think that just a team-first attitude goes a long way. At this time of the year, it's particularly important.
All right. Let's have ourselves a good weekend again. We remind people, Boston University at the Tsongas Center. Friday night, a 7 o'clock start. Saturday night, the two teams journey down to the Agganis Arena in Back Bay, Boston. That's a 7:30 start. Norm Bazin, we thank you for your time. Certainly good luck.
Thank you, Bob.